Okay. All right. Well, welcome to our program meeting for the month of March. My name is Pam Walker, and I'm the current president of the club of our chapter. Got a couple of announcements before we turn the meeting over to our special guest for the evening. The first is that on Sunday, March 16th from 2 to 5 p.m., if you are a member of our club, you're welcome to join us for our gear swap at Carrie's Brew House. This is a time when you can bring anything you have that you want to clean out of your fly fishing closet in exchange for somebody else's similar treasure. And it'll be a free event. You can charge for the items you bring if you have something of particular value. You can buy a beer, you can buy a meal at Carrie's and just have a great social time. I know last year it was an opportunity for a lot of club members to make plans for fishing together. So let's move on to the next one. 2 to 5. 2 to 5. Oh, I have this. Okay, our rod raffle is now officially open too. This is one of our big fundraisers of the year. We're offering your choice of any TFO rod for 1 ticket for $10, 3 for $20, 6 for $35. You can just follow that QR code on the screen to our website and pay for your tickets via PayPal. And I think this is also on our Facebook page. So if you don't have your phone handy and you can't get that code, find us on Facebook and you'll see it there. And we've got another slide. Also coming up in March, we are going to be having a table at the Seth Green TU's Fly Fishers Workshop, which is a day that's packed full of classes, events, casting instruction, demos. You can see it all there, tying demos, food trucks, raffles. This should be a really great event. We'll be there. Many of the other fly fishing groups around the area are going to be there. Please come in and say hi at our table. And our very own Chaz Elliott, who's a certified casting instructor, will be offering casting lessons at that event. So that should be great. And then I've got another announcement just hot off the presses. I don't know if we can see that, but we have a bunch of people here who are from the Finger Lakes Boating Museum, and they are holding a trout day on March 29th. So we'll be sure to pick this up in our emails. If you have this on Facebook, we'll share it to our page if that's available. But this sounds like a great event, a lot of all fishing related activities. So. Okay. Fantastic. But I think what I'm going to do right now is make one small pitch that if this is your first event with our club, to consider joining us. It's easy. You can just go to the Fly Fishers International website and join online and indicate Twin Tiers 5 Rivers FFI as your home club. We welcome new members and we've got a great lineup of activities. If you're here, you've probably seen about us on Facebook and you'll see more about us there. But then I think that's enough announcements because I know people are really here to hear the program for our guest tonight, presenter Don Kelly. But before I introduce him, just a couple of things, reminders for the Zoom audience. I don't hear you right now, and that's great. So thank you for muting your microphones. We don't want any whispered dialogue or other noises in your environment to distract from the presentation. Also, if you are on Zoom and you have questions for Don, please put them in the chat. We're not going to be opening the audio to remote attendees, but you're welcome to ask a question and we'll make sure to present them here. And if you're here in person, thank you for coming tonight. We've got a great turnout. Please hold your questions till the end of the presentation. So let me introduce Don. Here's the official introduction. After coming to the area for a fisheries biology degree at Mansfield, Don turned his passion for fishing into a thriving business, the Tackle Shack in Wellsboro. It's a business with deep roots in the local community. Don also volunteers as a Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission fishing skills instructor who helps teach a variety of virtual and in-person classes on ice fishing, fly fishing, crappie fishing, and more. Don, I think you'll see in the presentation tonight, Don is a multidiscipline angler with extensive experience fishing the local waterways of Pennsylvania and abroad. So here comes the unofficial introduction. One of our Facebook friends and beyond, Ari Kapotis, said that if she weren't giving a presentation elsewhere, she'd be tuning into this one because, I quote, Don is a wealth of knowledge and he and his wife, Renee, are a blast to be around. So she also says the Tackle Shack has materials she has a hard time finding at other shops. So if you haven't been, you should go. And I'm embarrassed to admit that I've driven by it many times, every time I've been down to Pine Creek, in fact. I should have stopped long ago because on my very first visit, Don gave us great advice on where to fish. And he connected Dee and me with Amadee Daniels, who was having a women's gathering on Pine Creek. And she welcomed us, even though we totally crashed her event. Anyway, now the Tackle Shack is definitely going to be a regular stop on my way to Pine Creek, to Ansonia and Darling Run. And after tonight's program, I think it will be one for you too. So please give a warm welcome to Don Kelly, and I'll pass over the mic.
That work? I think so. All right. Yeah, so my name is Don Kelly. I'm the owner of Tackle Shack in Wellsboro. Just a little bit more about me. I've been in this business for close to 25 years now. I started in the industry working for Orbis for about 5 years and went to Mansfield for a fisheries biology degree. Kind of fell in love with the area, decided I'd probably like to stick around here, and had an opportunity to buy the Tackle Shack, and we've been there ever since. Like you mentioned, I'm a multi-discipline angler. I enjoy fishing for everything. I enjoy fishing everywhere. This is some pictures from the last few years. I had an opportunity to fish for peacock bass down in Columbia with Cortland line, did some fishing down in Florida for some warm water fish, and do some ice fishing in the wintertime. So I like to do it all. I just like to be out enjoying fishing with my friends and family. And then I like to share those experiences with people like you guys here tonight. So a little bit of the agenda tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about the PA trout regulations and the stream designations, some of the stock trout fishing opportunities, some of the wild trout fishing opportunities, a little bit of warm water fishing, a little bit of winter fishing, and then we'll wrap it up with some questions. Yeah, I'm not going. So why PA? PA is home to 86,000 miles of waterways, flowing waterways. It's second only to Alaska in miles of waterways. There's also 4,000 inland lakes and reservoirs. In our county, Tioga County, there we go. There's 1,847 miles of flowing water and 7 public lakes. And by public lakes, I mean state lakes or Army Corps lakes. There are some ponds and whatnot that are open, pretty much open to the public, but we're talking about just state and federally owned lakes. For fishing licenses are, of course, if you're going to be in Pennsylvania, just like every other state, you're going to have to buy a fishing license. If you're 16 or older, and a resident fishing license is $27.97, and non-resident is $60.97. The big difference between PA and New York, our licenses run a calendar year. They're January 1st to December 31st. So if you buy it today, it'll be good till the end of December. There are also 1, 3, and 7-day options. If you purchase the license online, this can be kind of confusing. You'll notice the 1 and the 3-day licenses are both the same price. The reason being, the 1 day is an all-inclusive 24-hour pass. It includes a trout stamp and a Lake Erie stamp. The 3 and the 7-day options are licenses, and you would have to buy these stamps separately. The trout stamp is $14.97 if you're going to fish for trout in Pennsylvania. For the most part, you need to purchase that. And if you buy a tourist license, a 3-day license, and you decide later in the year you come down again and buy another 3-day, that trout stamp's still good for the entire year. The Lake Erie stamp is going to be for fishing Lake Erie and its tributaries, so you don't really need that in this area. But if you do get out steelhead fishing or want to do some fishing on the lake, you can buy the combo permit for $20.97 as well. And again, that's good for a calendar year. I would recommend checking out the Fish Boat PA app. This is a free app. It's put on by the Fish and Boat Commission. And from there, you can purchase your licenses, and we'll talk about a couple other features from there on there that'll help you find some places to fish in Pennsylvania too. So there's a lot of water in Pennsylvania. And like I said, there's 86,000 miles of flowing waters in PA. And Pennsylvania breaks them down into a lot of different designations. This is a screenshot from their website. You can pull up the trout streams, and if you notice on the left, there's always little check boxes. You can unclick or click any of the trout streams that you're interested in, whether it be the Class A or some of the wild trout streams, or some of the special regs trout, stock trout fishing areas, and break that up into whatever designation you want to see in whatever county you're going to. For tonight's purposes, we're going to talk mostly about the Class A wild trout streams, some of the wild reproduction streams that don't make the Class A status, and then some of the stock trout regulations and the special regulations that go with that. Class A trout streams are Pennsylvania's best waterways. There's a lot of them in Pennsylvania, and you can pull up this list right from the state's website, and you can list every stream in Pennsylvania that meets their standard of the highest quality of biomass of trout. For the most part, these are going to be brook and brown trout streams. There are a handful of wild rainbow streams, but for the most part, it's brook and brown trout. In Tioga County, it's going to be predominantly brook trout. We tend to have mostly high gradient streams, but we do have some of those brown trout as well in those streams. You get over to Potter County, you see more of those low-lying, more brown trout water streams too. One thing I want to note with this is just because it's Class A doesn't mean it's open to the public. You notice on the right side here, it says % public ownership. Some of these are all on game land. Some of them are on state forest and open to everybody. Some of them are on private land. And not saying you can't fish them, but make sure you're going to ask for permission before you just wander onto some of these smaller streams. And a lot of these are kind of a mix. You'll see some of it on public land and some of it on private land. A lot of the stuff on the state land has fairly decent access and little pull offs that you can go to and access those waterways. The ones that don't make Class A status, wild trout waters, there's also a full list of those on the state's website. And these are stream sections that support populations of wild trout, but not necessarily enough wild trout to make that Class A status. And in my area, pretty much if it has water in it and it flows off a mountain, it probably has wild trout in it. Some of those are classified as Class A. Some of them have wild trout that haven't been classified. There's a unassessed waters initiative currently going on in Pennsylvania. So they're adding new streams to those to the Class A list pretty regularly right now. And I think there's another 10 or 15 of them they'll be voting on here in the next couple commissioners meetings. But again, a ton of different water, a ton of wild trout to find throughout the county and throughout Pennsylvania. As far as stock trout regulations, there's a lot of misunderstandings with trout regulations in Pennsylvania. A lot of people think that stock trout fishing or trout fishing just ends after Labor Day, and that's not the case. You can fish for trout year-round in Pennsylvania on a good majority of the streams. The places that it ends are going to be the places that are designated under just general stock trout regulations. And those are going to be areas like a section on Pine Creek that's not under special regulations. And those areas will be closed to fishing from February 16th until opening day. This year it's going to be April 5th. Our opening day is the first Saturday in April every year. That's gone back and forth a few times over the last few years. We had 2 opening days for a while, a regional opening day and then a statewide opening day. And then it was voted on to start opening day on the first Saturday in April every year now. So the Class A streams, those wild trout streams that have fish or that aren't under a special regulation, they're open to fishing. The only place you got to worry about are the streams under general stock trout regulations. They're the only spots that are closed starting in February 16th. And they're closed just so they can restock the fish and get them ready for opening day. Under the stock trout regulations, there are a number of places that are open year-round that are stocked as well. The Keystone Select Stretch in Pine Creek is probably the one most popular places, and there's a number of these Keystone Select stretches in Pennsylvania. These are areas that are under delayed harvest, artificial lures only regulations, and the Keystone Select designation means they put more big fish in there. So you get giant rainbows like these, some big brown trout. I've had the opportunity to help stock these fish a number of times, and it's just incredible the size of the fish they put in there. But on average, it's going to be a lot of those like 14, 16-inch fish, just nice catchable fish, and then some of these monsters. There are some catch and release fly fishing only sections as well. In Tioga County, it's going to be Kettle Creek and Slate Run down in Lycoming County is page 24 in the rule book, or on their website. You can see all these too. We're not going to dive too deep into this, but just be aware there's a lot of water in Pennsylvania. If you're going to go check out a new stream, make sure you check the regulations before you wander onto it. For the most part, if you're fly fishing, you're going to be allowed to fish anywhere without much restriction. This mostly revolves around the bait fishing, different lures, and harvest more so than anything. No, that's I had it. But yeah, you're good. You're good. And we can't really talk about regulations without talking about Pine Creek. Pine Creek is under 4 different regulations. The very headwaters of it are under a Class A wild trout stream. When you get down towards Gailton and down to about Ansonia, it's going to be under the general stock trout regulation, and that is going to be closed to fishing after February 16th until they open in day. And then there's the delayed harvest, the Keystone Select stretch you just talked about, where they're going to put a lot of those big fish. That's open year round. Can have a lot of really good fish in this time of the year. It's stocked in both the spring and in the fall. We had a lot of fish that held over this past season, and fishing was just great up until Pine Creek froze solid here about a month ago. And then it switches back to a stock trout regulation, and then when you get down towards Slate Run, it opens back up to a all tackle catch and release section. A lot of people know this stretch is the fly fishing only stretch. It is not a fly fishing only stretch. It is all tackle, catch and release. You can fish with whatever tackle you'd like. It just has to be catch and release fishing. And on a side note there, Pine Creek is Pennsylvania's longest stock trout stream. So it is a lot of water to fish and a lot of water to enjoy all season long. When we were talking about this presentation, I was thinking, it's like, well, we could just pick 20 streams and go slide by slide and tell you a little bit about it, but it wouldn't really benefit you as much, I think, as knowing some of the tools to find these streams yourself. When you go onto the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission's website, the easiest way to find this page, go onto Google, type in PA trout stocking, and it'll bring you right to this page here. And you can search by county for all the streams that are stocked in that county. It'll give you the stocking dates, it'll give you the stocking limits, and it'll give you the stocking times. A lot of this is done because they do need help to spreading fish out. It's a great opportunity if you have kids or Cub Scout groups or something. Go down there, grab a few buckets of fish, and throw them in the creek. It's a lot of fun, and you get a firsthand look at where some of these fish are going. You can also break it into the time of the year. So if you're looking for just spring stockings or just fall stockings, you can pull that up here and find that information fairly easily. And if you wear a funny looking hat, you catch more fish. That's just a guarantee. This does not include stockings from co-op, hatcheries, and private organizations. So in our area, there's a bunch of different private clubs and sportsmen's groups that also stock fish. Morris Rod and Gun Club, CV Anglers would be 2 big ones. So if you're members of those clubs, you'll get the stocking lists and times that they're going to put fish in as well.
Fish and Wildlife has a hatchery, right? Do they stock Pennsylvania?
Fish and Wildlife doesn't have a hatchery in our area anymore. That was shut down a few years ago. Yeah, that was a research lab, and they shut that down quite a while ago. All right. Again, I mentioned that Fishboat PA app. This is the other reason I think it's a good thing to download. This is just a screenshot from my cell phone. Neat thing is you can click near me and you can pull up the trout stocking schedule, and it'll show up the trout stocking schedule, the stock trout streams, and some special regulation areas that you can find. If you're in town for the day, want to just do a little fishing, pull it up on the app. You can narrow the radius down to 5 or 25 miles and find some places to fish while you're in the area. So with that, I do have a couple streams I want to talk about. We've got a lot of great water in the area, but kind of give you a couple that are fairly easy access and have some good fishing. The first being Crooked Creek, and this is a giant golden rainbow. Do they stock these in New York, the golden rainbows? They don't? Okay. So this is a Pennsylvania specialty. They are in a couple other states I'm aware of. They are called golden rainbow trouts. You'll hear them called palominos and golden trout, but this is a mutation of a rainbow trout, a golden rainbow, and quite common in a lot of our streams. The Crooked Creek is a new addition to the stocking list as of about 5 years ago. It dumps into Hammond Lake on Route 287. And what I like about it, you have a pointer? That's all right. That's all right. I got a mouse here. I got a mouse. So this right here is a road that parallels Crooked Creek. It runs from the Ives Run campground all the way along the creek up to Hills Creek Road, and it makes access really easy. There's multiple parking areas in there, and just a lot of good water that you can access. It's stocked only in the springtime, and we'll talk about it a little bit later too. It's also a warm water fishery that's really, really nice. That first picture of me wearing the funny hat, that was from Crooked Creek. I really like that creek for a lot of my nymphing setups. It's a nice size creek. It's easy to reach with a Euro nymphing rod. We do have some decent hatches on it too, but I do best throwing nymphs and throwing streamers, and just a nice body of water to fish. There's a lot of deflectors down towards the lake that make some nice pools. You got some trees that are down, and just a good mix of water to fish.
What's the road on the map?
Gonna be right here. It's I can't think of the name of the this road.
Yeah.
280 Route 287. Yep. So if you're heading south on into Wellsboro area, you'll see the lake on your left. It'll be Hammond Lake. If you turn into the lake and take the first right, you'll go back to a parking area, and then that road.
So if you're coming from our way, going say down to Delton, that way, going west, go past the lake and
Right. You're gonna go past the lake. You'll see the Ives Run campground sign. Take a left into the park, and then it'll be the first right that'll take you back on that road. Yep. Or if you continued down 287, took a left on Hills Creek Lake Road, it would take you that first bridge, and then that road cuts back towards the lake back there. Okay. All right. One of the more popular destinations in this area is Stony Fork Creek. And the big draw, the big story with Stony Fork is there's a big hole at Big Falls. If you talk to little kids or some old timers telling stories, they'll tell you this hole was 50 feet deep and there was cars buried in it and all kinds of fun stories from back in the day. But unfortunately, modern technology has ruined that, and people have scuba dived and gotten video, and it's only about 20 feet deep and not near as mysterious as everybody had hoped it was. But it's a beautiful, beautiful stream. It's a little bit more remote, south of Morris, and it's got these big boulders, really nice pools, nice runs, very clear water, stocked heavily, and just a fun creek to fish. I'd like throwing dry flies here in some of those slower pools, and there's also a Stony Fork Creek campground there, which puts you right near the creek for make a nice weekend getaway to do a little fishing. And the last on my stock trout list here, this is Long Run, and I picked this stream in particular because it's kind of the baby of Tie Dot and Trout Unlimited. And we were tying flies the other day at my shop, and I asked the president of the club, I said, well, why did you guys settle on Long Run? There's all these other streams there. Why did you choose Long Run? And this is the only stream in that stretch of Pine Creek that doesn't meet Class A status. And they're hoping that with some work over the next decade, all these tree plantings, all these log deflectors, putting new habitat in there, that they're going to be able to get this to Class A status. Currently, there is some wild trout in it, but it is mostly a stock trout stream. Now, I will be transparent here. I have not been down here since the floods in the fall. I don't know if you got it as bad up here, but that tropical storm that came through, it decimated a lot of Tioga County. This was one of the streams that got hit very hard. There was a little bridge that everybody liked to fish, and that floated into Pine Creek, I believe. It was pretty bad. But it's, like I said, a lot of good work going on here, and hopefully within the next 10 years, this is turning into more and more of a wild trout fishery. If you're interested in that project, contact Trout Unlimited, the Tie Dot and chapter Trout Unlimited. They can give you a little bit more info on that. This is a nice, again, smaller stream, but easy to fish and fairly easy access. This runs along Route 349. There's a couple large parking areas, and once you're in the stream, you got access to a lot of good water. For wild trout fisheries, there's a whole bunch of them. Like I said earlier, pretty much if it dumps off the mountains in Tioga County and most of Pennsylvania, it probably has wild trout in it. They vary in size from tiny little streams you can jump across to a little bit bigger water. Some of our more popular ones, Ace of Run, Straight Run, Cedar Run, and we had mentioned earlier, 4 Mile Run. But there is so many little streams that have trout in them. I like to take my little 2-weight and throw a dry dropper, but a lot of times I like to go hike and hunt mushrooms and just take a 10-carat rod and a couple nymphs and plunk a few brookies out of there. For the most part, again, these are going to be brook trout streams. They got some absolute beauties in there, but we do have some brown trout as well. Cedar Run's the only one that's under a different regulation. That's artificial lures only. Most of these, the Class A's, are going to be open to any type of fishing, and they are open year round. If you just can't keep them in the extended season. So Ace of Run is located about 7 miles from my shop. Is a tributary to Marsh Creek. It's easiest access would be off Marsh Creek Road. You go to this little village of Asif, take a right, and go back up into the state game lands. And this is a new addition to the Class A list. I think it was about 5 years ago, if not a little sooner. They were stocking it in this whole stretch, the main stretch, and about 5 years ago, it made the Class A status, and it is since they quit stocking it. The main stem is not big water, no bigger than that picture of Long Run I had earlier. But as you get in the left and right Asif, it kind of tightens up into some real small water. I have personally never caught any real big browns out of there, but I've caught a few that were just absolutely beautiful. This fish was just up on right Asif. I have seen some larger browns come out of the main stem, and I know there's some giants in there that I haven't found yet. But I've found with a lot of these streams that have mixed populations, it seems like the farther you get up them, they turn into mostly brook trout. And it seems Asif in particular, since I've been there the last 15 years, it seems like the brown trout are working their way farther and farther upstream. I found them fairly far up on right Asif these last few years. And again, I like to take my 10-carat rod and fish this and a couple nymphs or a dry dropper on a small 2-weight. And Straight Run kind of runs parallel to Asif Run. It's probably about a mile away. It mentioned that the USGS Fish Lab that is at the base of that creek. It has since been shut down. I've heard various things were going to happen to that, but I haven't seen any concrete.
Wellsboro USGS Lab.
It was federal, yeah. It's right at the bottom there, but not anymore. It's closed down, and I don't know what they're going to do with it at this time. But yeah, Straight Run is also a tributary to Marsh Creek. It's got very easy access. You can take a right onto Straight Run Road and follow it up into the mountains. There's a nice trail that follows the creek for quite a ways, and it's a lot of small water. In this particular picture, my wife here, we were out fishing on Straight Run. I think it was probably June-ish, and we got into some real skinny water, and I was like, I just cast up there. She's like, there's no fish in there. I mean, just tiny little pockets. And so just make the cast. And she cast and caught this real nice one. And it's amazing what little water a brook trout needs to hold in. So you get any little rock or any little stick in the water, and that makes a little pool, and they're hiding behind it. It tends to look like this for most of the creek. You got a couple nice little plunge pools. And again, the farther you get up it gets a little bit smaller, but it's also got a mixed population of browns and brookies that seems to turn into mostly brookies the farther you get up on it. My wife likes to match the fish when we go out fishing. That's the key to catching them. It's the fish you wear she really likes.
I bought that shirt.
Oh yeah. As far as warm water fishing, unfortunately, a lot of our stock trout fisheries, just like everywhere, they get too warm in the summertime to ethically target trout. And fortunately, a lot of these same waterways are great for a lot of warm water species. Pine Creek, Tioga River, Kauniska River, Crooked Creek are some of the larger waters that you're going to find good populations of a variety of fish. They got carp, smallmouth, walleye, muskies, and being really good mix of fish. Upper Pine is primarily known for stock trout, but there's plenty of large fall fish. They might not be the prettiest fish, but they have saved the skunk for me many times. And what I like about these guys is that they will hit dry flies, they'll hit streamers, they'll hit, if you're live bait, they will eat pretty much anything, and they get rather large, so they're always fun. I don't know what their exact spawning time is, but it's when they're spawning, they get a real nice bright red head, and they seem to just be extra aggressive. So we have fun catching them. The smallmouth on Upper Pine, and when I talk about Upper Pine, I'm talking about like my area, the Wellsboro area, not so much down in the canyon. The smallmouth are plentiful, but they don't get very big for the most part. 8, 10, 12 inches, going to be pretty common. Not saying you won't find a bigger one, but for the most part, they're just little guys. But they'll willingly take poppers and small streamers, or a lot of nymphs. Once it warms up, I really like taking a nice Anikia nymph and just swimming it through some of those pools, and we'll hit those pretty aggressively. Once Marsh Creek dumps in Ansonia, you also see some pickerel in there and some rock bass and some beautiful sunfish too. I remember the first time I ever came to this area and I fished Pine Creek, I went out there and we're throwing dry flies and these fish just start cruising and minnows were jumping up on shore. I was like, wow, I'd never seen trout do this. And we tied some streamers on. I hooked one and it broke off. So, man, I can't believe I broke that off. I tied another streamer on and hooked another fish, and that's what it turned out. They were pickerel. So I've never seen any super big ones in there, but they are pretty catchable through that area. Tioga River, much like the Chemung and all that, it's great smallmouth fishing. The Tioga Spillway in particular is a very popular walleye destination, though there's walleye all the way up to the New York border and now right into New York State. I find a good mix of patterns work to catch fish down there. There's a lot of crayfish, and whether you're using crayfish flies or small Ned rig patterns like this, you can catch a good variety of fish on them, smallmouth and rock bass, and pretty much anything that swims in Tioga and Hammond lakes. You'll notice that you'll start hearing people talk about hybrid stripers after we get a big flood in the lakes. When the lakes come up, the stripers go down the river, and it's really disappointing every year because I love catching them in the lakes. And as soon as I hear guys catching them down there, it's like, well, there goes another year class of them. They like to follow the water. But yeah, a lot of great fishing. The access is fairly good through most of Pennsylvania. The bridges you can park at and walk a lot of stream miles. You get up towards Lawrenceville or some more designated parking areas. Catch quite a few nice smallmouth too, and this 2 and 3 pound fish. And I've caught them on a variety of stuff from small streamers to poppers and all kinds of conventional tackle. Now, Crooked Creek, we had mentioned, was a good stock trout stream, but is also a very fun warm water fishery. The interesting thing I find with the lake run fish is it's about the opposite of what you guys have up here. The trout run in the fall and are here for a while. What I noticed in Crooked Creek is there's a time in the spring where there's just, I'm not going to say no fish, but there's just not many fish there. And then you go every day, and sometime in late May or late April, early May, they just all show up again. It's the shad come back up the river, the smallmouth come back up the river, the rock bass, the carp, and they stay there until sometime in the fall when the temperature changes, and then they all go back to the lake. Again, not saying no fish in the late fall, but the populations really drop after the fish go back to the lake. We have a lot of fun catching carp down there. This is my employee, Mike. He was pretty proud of one he caught last year. We catch them on worm flies, catch them on little little crayfish patterns. It's generally a pretty easy stream to catch, to sight fish and catch tailing carp. They don't tend to get real big. This is a pretty average fish. You'll see them 8, maybe 10, 12 pounds. A lot of those 4 or 5 pound fish, but on a 6 weight or 7 weight, they're still a lot of fun to catch. And like the fall fish, the mighty rock bass there has saved many skunks for me too. So they don't always get very big, but they're always willing to eat, and we catch them on pretty much anything too. If it looks like food, they're probably going to eat it. Oh, and then there is also this top secret info. There's a small run of hybrid stripers in the spring. Depending on what the water levels look like in the lake for a couple of years, if we get high water, they flush out of the lake. But if we don't have high water for a while, there's enough stripers. They make a spawning run in the spring. They can't successfully spawn their hybrids, but they go through the motions, and a good surprise when you're up there throwing streamers for trout, and one of those whacks it. So in Tioga County, we also have 7 public lakes, and this striper here on the left is out of Kawaneski Lake. I have caught very few of them on a fly rod, but they are an absolute blast. Then I catch more of them on spoons and jerk baits and stuff like that. But this particular fish, we're out in mid-June. The alewives are spawning, which tends to bring really good topwater action. And I was watching some alewives cruise in real shallow, and this big wake started out behind it. And I just chucked a popper out there and 2 pops, and he smoked it. So it was a pretty fun night. The springtime topwater bite can be absolutely incredible out there for the stripers. It's getting to be a little bit more known now. They've only been stocking them for about 10 years now. So there's a lot of little fish yet. Not little fish. They're still, but not like fully mature fish. I'd say on the larger side, you might have 25 to 30 pounders, but for the most part, you're going to catch 20 to 30 inch fish. There's also muskies and tiger muskies in there. One of my customers have been ice fishing all week up there. Got one that was 47 inches through the ice here pretty recently. I've never seen a striper through the ice. That's kind of my goal this year. Then Tioga Hammond Lakes are unique. There's 2 lakes that are connected, but not necessarily. You can't get to one from the other. And Hammond is particularly known for the state record crappie. That fish was over 4 pounds, an absolute monster. If you go into the Ives Run Visitor Center in the campground, they have a replica made of that. It's hard to believe a crappie gets that big up here in the north. I don't know if we'll ever see one that big again, but 10 to 12 inch crappies are quite common. If you want to catch them on a fly rod or spinning gear, the best time to come down somewhere in between the 1st and 3rd weeks of May. They come in spawning by the 1,000, and I've had many 100+ fish days just from shore or from a kayak or boat. The spawning run can be very good if the conditions are right. We get good stable weather for a few weeks. It's just very good fishing. If we get kind of those days where it's 35 and then it's 70 and then it's 35 again in the spring, it doesn't tend to be quite as good, but still plenty catchable. There's also hybrid stripers in there, like I'd mentioned, and they are a blast to catch on a fly if you can catch them chasing the shad around. Tioga and Hammond both have very large populations of gizzard shad, and because of that, there's a ton of gizzard shad down in the rivers. So if you're making flies, think about that. They're bright silver bait fish. Something about that big tends to be about perfect. You don't need a really big fly to mimic those. In Kawaneski, we're going to be mimicking alewives mostly. And again, that spawn kind of in the springtime really leads to some good topwater action. Those are the Army Corps lakes are going to be your larger lakes, anywhere from 400 to 1,100 acres. And we also have 4 smaller lakes. Hamilton and Beechwood lakes are roughly about 50, 60 acres. They're both stocked with trout. And the creek going into Hamilton Lake is also a very good place to find trout. They stock them at the boat launch, and a lot of them like to run up the creek. So if you see a bunch of people at the boat dock, that's usually the reason why. There's usually a school of them there, but if you walk upstream, you can get a bunch of fish that aren't quite as pressured and then mess around with them too. They are both stocked in the spring and the fall. Hamilton is stocked in October and Beechwood is stocked in December. So there's plenty of holdover fish for the winter seasons as well. And Nesmic Lake is on Route 287, just on the other side of Wellsboro. This is personally one of my favorite lakes in the area. It's got a great panfish population, a great bass population, and it has received nationwide recognition for a fish habitat project that was done there by the state and the local bass club. It was drained in 2012, and when it was drained, we had a really unique opportunity to go in and do a large-scale fish habitat project, bring in heavy equipment and put all kinds of fish habitat in there. And those maps are available online if you want to kind of cheat code on where to find some hot spots for warm water fishing. Pulling up these habitat maps is a real easy way to find where fish should be congregating for you. It's also a place me and my wife had our first date, so it's always kind of held a special place in my heart. And finally, we have Hills Creek Lake. It is a state park lake. It's about 110, 130 acres. It can be a little tough to fish from shore in the summertime. It gets very weedy, but if you have a boat or especially a canoe or a kayak, It's a great lake to fish. It's pretty shallow, and you can catch a lot of nice panfish, bass, and pickerel in there too. And finally, let's talk a little bit about winter fishing. You know, we love fly fishing, we love summer fishing, but even Pine Creek right now is frozen solid. So there are spots you can fish some of these streams, but a lot of our water is just solid ice right now, and to the point you can walk across a lot of it. And for me, once it gets into be about mid-December, all I'm thinking about is ice fishing. And our 7 lakes are some of the first to freeze in Pennsylvania, particularly the smaller lakes. Hills Creek is one of the first lakes to freeze every single year in Pennsylvania. And even years like last year, where it was fairly warm, we still got a little bit of time out on that lake. We catch a lot of panfish through the ice. And if it's something you're thinking about, haven't tried before, I'd recommend checking out the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission's website. Coming up in the fall, we'll have enrollment for ice fishing classes. We provide everything. You come out and we teach you how to do it, and hopefully catch a few fish and have a little fun. It's a great way to spend your winters, and if you're not tying flies or doing something else, and just kind of wait for warmer weather. This area and some lakes in the northeast part of the state are some of the first to freeze, and generally the most consistent ice in the region. And with that, I'm glad to take any questions for you.
Oh, your streams are in the summer are pretty warm. How about the lakes? Do you fish Hamilton, Beechwood in the summer, and maybe even others like Pine, or Little Pine, or Kettle, or Lyman?
They are all going to be fishable year round. As far as trout fishing, you can't really not target them, I guess. I mean, they're going to be around. You're going to be catching mostly bluegills and things, though, if you're throwing trout flies in the summertime. To target trout in the summer, I'd say on those lakes, Lyman Run maybe would probably stay the coldest, but Hamilton and Beechwood, they're going to be there, but they're hunkered down in deep water, and generally not going to be a great time to target them. Those lakes are going to get up into the 80s, high 70s, 80s in the warmer weather.
Fish will carry over though.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, we get quite a few holdovers every year. Yep. And then again, they do stock it in the fall too, so the fall opportunities are always there too.
We had a question online from Jim Walk who asked if you offer guide services on Pine Creek.
I currently do not offer guide services. We've talked about it, just haven't made that step yet. There are some great guides on Pine Creek. I know if you talk to Slate Run Tackle Shop on Lower Pine, they've got a couple people. Julie Zur, she's a good guide on Pine Creek, and I'm sure there's some other ones too.
How would you rate the water down at
Hammersley Forks, not one I tend to get over too much, but I mean it's a very popular destination. Some good fishing over there. Yeah.
A number of years ago, the fracking down started to place in havoc with some brook downstream. That pretty much been recovered.
I haven't seen any major issues that have come up anytime recently. The activity has been fairly strong here, I'd say, the last couple of years, but they seem to be really working to keep the streams in good health down there. I haven't seen any major issues in the region.
Kim and I have eyed Bab Creek as we drive down the Pine. Now I know that was affected by mining, so like we probably wouldn't eating those fish, but gosh, it sure looks good. Do you know anybody who fishes Bab
So
Creek?
Bab Creek is an incredible success story. They installed a bunch of treatment there that has really restored that stream. There are some wild fish in it, but it is also stocked by Morris Rod and Gun Club. Some absolutely beautiful water. If you go down Landris Road and follow that creek up, there's some really, really nice holes and a lot of good fishing through there.
I know there's no place to park on there if you're going down that road. Pine Creek. You'll have over on the right, you'll have Bab.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just bank and guardrails.
On Landris Road, is that what you're talking about?
I don't know the name of the road, no.
The one along Bab Creek? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I know the road, follow Bab Creek down to the big parking area on Pine Creek where the boat launch is.
Blackwell. Yeah.
Drive down that road, there's really no parking on there's camps in there, but
Mhm.
there's guardrail right on the road.
I think we're talking the major road, which is 287,
Right.
and that's Wilson Creek. Landers Road's across State Forest, and there's lots of parking. Basically,
It's like a little dirt road.
Really a
Yeah.
nice green. It's an old railroad bed, actually. That road's an old railroad.
Yeah. So you're talking farther downstream. I think you're just talking farther down.
Farther down,
Yeah.
above where it goes into Pine Creek.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Babs, Wilson, yeah, they flow. You're right. So Babs Creek that you want to fish is north of Moores.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, gotcha,
Yep.
gotcha,
Moores.
gotcha.
Yep.
There's one spot, it's like a popular swimming hole. Pull up there.
Yeah. There's like if you go down Landers Road, they're not parking areas, but they're little pull offs and things you can park in. Yeah. Yeah. And walk down and fish all that.
Know anything about Mount Pisgah State Park?
I do. It's a great little lake. It's similar to Hills Creek. They've got really nice panfish in there and some nice bass too.
I
Mhm.
haven't been there.
I haven't spent much time fishing over there. I have the unfortunate problem of having so much good water within 10 miles that I just I want to get up here and fish some of the New York waters. I unfortunately just don't know as much about your trout fishing up here because and it's not that far away. And I know there's some phenomenal wild trout fishing up here too.
Funny is I always say, why don't you fish down? Oh, and we go down.
Well, that's what I think the benefit with we have the benefit of living just so close to the border because we have so many opportunities. Like we don't have a lake run fish, but we have so many of these little mountain streams that can be fished too. And I just really love where we're at. Within 2 hours, I can be on so much good water in Pennsylvania and New York, and a lot of other states don't have those opportunities that we do.
Cross Forks, Class A one.
Cross Fork, I believe, is on the Class A list, but I would have to double check that. I'm not positive offhand.
I wanted to ask about Tioga Hammond.
Mhm.
The Tioga River just from the discharge down.
Mhm.
There's a parking area and then right at the dam.
Yep.
Basically, all rocks. Got to kind of walk down through the rocks to fish it. Is there another place like downstream from there to access it? Or?
Yeah. So, well, first, if you're gonna fish a spillway, like there's always fish there, and it's definitely uh, a tough area to fish, but it's always a good spot. It's the other spots I like. If you go just out of town, the first bridge in Tioga, when you'd be heading north, I guess from this way, heading south before you get into Tioga, there's a little parking area there. You can access the creek there. When you go up into Lawrenceville, towards Lawrenceville on 287, there's some not really designated parking areas, but you kind of pull off the side of the road and get into the water. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of the one stretch of water I really like. Yeah, I can't think of any other landmarks, but up near the adult store, a couple miles before that, there's a really nice stretch of water, and that's I pull off beside the guardrails there and catch a lot of nice fish.
Someone told me that there are trout.
Yeah, so they stock Quarry Creek and Mill Creek that both dump into Tioga Lake, and when you get high water events or just from the natural movement of water, I guess they end up down in the river. A couple years ago, there was even lake trout that ended up in the spillway that I believe came from the USGS Fish Lab, and they were stocked in a pond for an event at Mill Cove, and I think the flooding ended up down in the spillway. The customer brought me pictures. He said, "Oh, yeah, I caught lake trout." I was like, "There's no way you caught lake trout." And he brought me pictures of them. Like, that's I'm pretty sure they came from. But yeah, there's usually quite large ones there too. It seems like they come from the creek, end up in the lake for a while, and grow big and fat, and then end up in the spillway. I've never caught one that was under 17, 18 inches in there. They're all nice ones.
In Marsh Creek, you leave your shop going south.
Mhm.
Instead of turning west on, you turn east and go to go to Wellsboro, there's water in that creek, is there?
Marsh Creek is stocked for quite a bit of it, from roughly from, I'd say, halfway down to where it meets Pine Creek is all stocked. Charleston Creek coming out of Hamilton Lake is also stocked, which eventually ends up dumping in there too. So then you could certainly see fish all through that creek. Yep. And then with Slate Run and Ace both being Class A's, there's definitely going to be wild fish that move in and out of those streams as well.
What are your plans for the shop coming up? We talked a lot about streaming, but what's going on in your world? Like you alluded to that.
Well, that's yeah, we've talked about it. I mean, our next big step of the shop is going to be building a bigger shop. So it's we haven't got there. We just did a full remodel, so we just did that in November. But hopefully in the next year or so, we'll be next couple of years. Hopefully, we'll be adding on down there. But yeah, we've been working a lot, revamping our fly fishing stuff. We've had a lot of tying materials. Picked up some big brands this year: Falling Mill and Semper Fly and Sage and Rio and all them. So we've added a lot of good brands. Oh, good. Oh yeah.
Won me when
We
I know it's hard to carry and stop.
we stopped in. We met those ladies at ICAST last year, and they were just super nice and super helpful. So we're glad to get their stuff in too. Anything else?
Online question?
I think there was nothing else online, no?
I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah, sure.
Another place that looked so beautiful driving by was Old Bull Run State Park.
Volleyball.
I think that's Kettle Creek,
That's Kettle
isn't it?
Yeah.
So I read after a relatively successful trip that the ends are better than the middle on Kettle Creek. Have you heard that at all? Like it's actually the middle stretch is not as good as the other areas. And what do you think of Old Bull Run? Is that worth like staying and fishing or?
I mean, that's a lot of good water out there. I haven't spent a ton of time on there, so I couldn't give you a good assessment of it. But I know a lot of people fishing. It's definitely a popular destination.
A few other club members.
Yeah.
I'm looking for you.
I'm still learning, but I know.
If you ever just want to have fun down in the county, it's if you just get in your car and drive up into the state lands. I mean, any of those streams are can offer some incredible fishing opportunities, and you can get away from people, and a lot of it's, I said, fairly easy access. I enjoy hiking back into the woods too, but man, if you see something that looks kind of fishy, it's worth stopping and throwing a few casts.
You get down a Slate Run, you go over the little Slate Run. The stream called Docker. Native brook trout.
Yeah, it's like the headwaters of Cedar Run and like the little creeks that dump into them. I think Mine Hole Run we did well on last year. Just had some fun. But yeah, like I said, pretty much any of them have some population of trout in them. Yeah, Phoenix Run I haven't had much success on, but I've caught some fish there. That is on the Class A list as well. Yeah, I know there's some good ones. Closer to where it dumps into Pine, I've done all right, but I know there is some good fishing up there too. It hasn't treated me well when I've been out there.
About the tributaries to Kawaneski Creek up around the west. It sure look good when I'm fishing down there. Take the time to walk up them.
The Elkland area, I don't spend a lot of time in either. The Kawaneski River itself is stocked. Some of those smaller streams in that area are stocked by CV Anglers Club, and I know there's populations of wild trout in some of them as well.
Anything else? Are you listy?
I am.
Okay.
I didn't take copious notes.
Yeah, and I'm always at the shop. So if you have questions on, and I'd say the Wellsboro area and Mansfield area is probably what I know best. There's a ton of little streams, and if I don't know the answer, I'd be more than happy to find it for you. We have a lot of good customers in the area that are willing to help us out.
So, to kind of reiterate what you said, that general stock waters statewide open the first Saturday.
First Saturday, yes.
What's open now in kind of our local area?
So right now, everything is open to fishing. It's the only thing that you can't do is harvest fish in a lot of those streams. Yeah,
All open for catching.
right. Yeah. Now on February 16th, the streams that are under general stock trout regulations are going to close until opening day.
Is that because they start stocking them?
Yep. Yeah. Then
So are there delayed harvest or other special regs that stay open? Or
yes. Yeah. So on Pine Creek, the delayed harvest section, it's classified as Keystone Select. It's open year round, artificial lures only, and you can harvest fish after I think not Memorial Day. Yeah, sometime in the summertime when it's too warm, basically.
We got a bad case of cabin fever, and we just have to go down there.
Oh yeah.
Throw a fly rod.
Yeah, and same with a lot of our warm water regulations. Like I know a lot of the waters that you can't target certain species in New York if it's out of season. We can pretty much target anything out of season. The only distinctions they make is you can't actively target a bedding bass. You can't harass them in their beds, but you can fish pretty much year round. Yep. In that same stretch too, the streams that don't have any designation, they're also going to be open year round, and the Class A's are open year round to fishing too. Anything else?
There's anything else? Okay, we're done,
Okay.
guys.
If you were gonna leave Pennsylvania, like I know you fish, like where do you want to go? What places are calling to you?
I'm hoping to get down to Nicaragua this year. One of the companies I deal with, he's catches rooster fish down there, and I'd really like to catch a couple of them. I really like heading south. I've fished Montana and Yellowstone and all that, and it's all beautiful water, a lot of fun. But I like heading down south. I like spending my time in salt water. I don't think I have any particular favorites, but it's just so different. I mean, saltwater fly fishing in particular, and fishing in general, is just so different. That you hook those fish and they peel off 50 yards of line instantly. You can't compare it to anything that we have around here. Golden Dorado also on the list, but I've priced that out. It's a bit much to get down there. Yeah.
Saying the club members probably like hearing about the steelhead fishing out Erie. An opportunity out there.
Oh yeah, I mean Erie's a great fishery. Now this year was kind of poor because of low water, but I think that was in pretty much all the tributaries. But Lake Erie is easy access and just a lot of good fishing out there. And then the steelhead are starting to get more big ones too. It used to be 3, 4, 5 pounders were pretty much what you're going to catch with a rare 10 pounder. And this year we saw a lot more 10 to 14, 15 pound fish. And the numbers can be incredible. And I've had 20, 30 fish days out there. And the creeks are not much bigger than Upper Pine Creek, maybe. Yeah, they're a lot of fun. Definitely worth traveling out there for.
And those fish, it's primarily a fall run, but they'll come in those tributaries through March.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep filtering in.
Yep. Yeah, we've been out there in the middle, February. As long as they're not iced up, you can fish them. Mm-hmm. And,
I don't want to cut you off because as soon as I start, somebody's
Yeah,
got
right.
another question.
Well, we can go ahead and shut down the meeting, or we can open it up again. Before we do it. Or leave it on.
Yeah, let's just leave it on for Jim.
Okay. And there were a couple of just, thank yous from various people said they'd like to meet you at your shop, and thanks for the great talk. And we had about 12 people.
Oh, good.
Online. So.
Good. And then we do a lot of other programs with the state. So if more spin fishing oriented, but if you're interested in learning how to catch crappies or bass fishing, we do a lot of virtual programs with Pennsylvania Fish Commission. And like I mentioned earlier, do the ice fishing in the fall. The state also has intro to fly fishing programs and some intro to steelhead fishing programs, and a lot of great opportunities to get involved in different facets of fishing with minimal investment, really.
One last question.
Sure.
You're heading out to do a little nymphing or hero nymphing. What are the one or two flies you're going to tie up?
Well, I'd like to start with real flies, and then I pretty quickly put squirmies on. So, but yeah, there's a lot of flies I like. I've probably caught more fish on pheasant tails than anything. When I'm running a Euro setup, George Daniels rubber Prince nymph has been a real good anchor fly for me. I really like, and then I'll run a Prince nymph up above, or not a Prince nymph, a pheasant tail up above that, or a Frenchie or something similar. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the squirmy mop combo is hard to beat on Pine Creek. It's they just always seem to eat it. But I prefer catching them on the real flies first before I resort to that. Anything else?
Okay, going.
Off the hook.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Do you want to take a minute to
Yeah.
pitch your
Sure.
program?
Yeah, thanks very much. I passed out some of the flyers here. First of all, Finger Lakes Boating Museum is in Hammondsport, the old Taylor Wine Building. Familiar with what those are. Anybody here? Good. Good.
Probably find it there.
Oh, you want to talk about it? So on March 29th, we're doing the first time we've tried out this thing that we're calling Trout Day. And so we put together a day of activities that tries to link the boats that we have at the museum. And if you look at these flyers here, these are trout boats that were used on the lakes. And they're 1930s and 1940s boats. A lot of these were single operations, and you'd pull a Seth Green rig. It's not a dry fly, but you guys have an idea what a Seth Green rig? Okay, good. So we're trying to make the connection between trout fishing and the boats that we have at the museum. So we put together a day of things that we'll talk about that. And we're going to start out with a presentation by Brad Hammers from Region 8 in DEC. And he's going to talk about the fisheries of the Finger Lakes, and in particular, Keuka Lake. So if you fished Keuka Lake at all, you're probably wondering why every single fish in that lake is that size. All the lake trout are that size, and they look pretty snaky. And so he's going to talk about some of the things that have happened there and what they're doing about it. We'll also have a presentation from one of the graduate students at Cornell University who did the Cisco reintroduction study in Keuka Lake. This is really pretty cool. I never realized that Cisco were native to Keuka Lake. I think of them as a Great Lakes forage fish, but not in the Finger Lakes, and apparently they were. So he's going to give a presentation on that and probably also talk about what the future plans are for stocking. Whether you know it or not, there was a giant alewife crash there about 4 years ago, I think. So to me, I've never had a good explanation for why, but we'll ask them and see what they say. So in addition to that, I've lined up my buddy Mike Balla. Have any of you guys ever read his books? He's done 9 books on fly fishing. There you go. And he's recently inducted into the Fly Fishing Hall of Fame. And we went to school at Cornell for the fisheries program together. So we're all cohorts and prime kind of thing. So he's going to come. He's going to have books to sign. He might do a little fly tying. I'm not sure, but he's going to be there. Friend of his from around, excuse me, Glens Falls is a pretty well-known trout artist, fly fishing artist. His name is Adriano Manocchia. And if you look up his stuff online, it's pretty amazing stuff. So he's going to bring that. He'll have those for sale. One of the guys from up around Rochester, Frank Payne. Anybody know Frank? Yes, he's going to do a rod building demonstration. You're going to come to this, aren't you? He is a good guy. Yeah, he is. He's a buddy of Mike's. So he will be there, and he'll do a rod building demonstration. What else have we got going on? We're going to do a tackle swap. So if at your tackle swap you look at what you got and you thought, what was I thinking when I did that? Bring it to ours. We're gonna have a whole building set up with the tackle swap stuff. I'm supposed to give some sort of a demonstration on using a Seth Green rig. So it always amazes me, we get people in the building like this and on the wall is a Seth Green rig and it shows a line coming down, the leads coming out and the weight on the bottom. And how does that work? So I actually have a video of fishing on Canandaigua Lake and pulling the Seth Green line and catching fish and all that. So we're going to do that. I'll bring my rig in and stretch it out and we can kind of get an idea for what's going on. Sutton Spoons from Naples. They will be there and they'll have their neat little case with all 70 some odd spoons that they make. So it's a whole day of trout activities. We hope to have a food truck on site. And so that's what's going on. March 29. I didn't put a time on that flyer, so it's from 9:30 until 4 in the afternoon.
At the boat museum. At the boat museum.
Yes, at the boat museum. Yes. Yeah.
The ticket, buy the ticket too, and you come. Get the admission to the museum is for the whole week too. It's not just for the day, so if you want. But and the museum is pretty interesting. Been on site, we took over the Taylor Winery. Slowly restoring the building. Trout boat room was probably got.
Yeah.
6 or 7
That's
of
what
the
this
local
picture
builders
is.
That used to build big hotels were on the lake.
Yeah, we have over 200 boats actually in the collection, variety of sailboats and inboard runabouts and Penyans and Thompsons and Morehouse. Like Chuck says, the boats that's our mission is the history and the boating experience in the Finger Lakes. So, we're very, very focused. So if somebody comes in and we get boats that come in because, wooden boats, they sat in Gramps' barn for a while and pretty soon you just don't feel like working on it, So it comes to the museum. But if people bring a Chris Craft, even in pretty decent shape, you'd look at that and go, that's pretty neat. You know what? We should take this in. Well, it wasn't made in the Finger Lakes. So we just don't do it. If you want to bring it up to Clayton for the Antique Boat Museum on the St. Lawrence, well, they might be interested. So it's a little bit tough because we were so focused on the Finger Lakes, but it's a unique piece of history at the same time. We do. Yes, we do. Yeah, quite a few. We have, is it the last one that was ever built? Or we have that one? I think so.
That's hope you've ever seen. It was he actually did a K boat.
Yeah.
But it's a bigger K boat.
Oh.
So one of the ones that targeted.
Yeah.
But it's a teaching museum too. And so I think we had last year 900 students, elementary, second, come in.
We're chartered as an educational institution under New York State, 501c3. The other good thing is we have this boat that Chuck and Dave and I all worked 6.5 years in restoring. We got this boat. It's called the Pat 2. It's a 39-foot. Started out as a tour boat on the St. Lawrence, and it ended up kind of in a burn pile in Geneva, and then we got it from Geneva, and we spent 6.5 years rebuilding it. And you can get a ride on this on Cuca Lake. So we charter this from the south end of Cuca Lake, and it's powered by electric motors. So you cruise down the lake and you can talk and you can sip your drink or whatever, and you don't have a diesel motor running.
$22,000.
Yeah, a lot of work. A lot of work.
Yeah. What time did you say that event was? I think you said
9:30 to 4. Yep.
So, are you up the lake?
We're kind of south of town.
South of town? So
Yeah, if you know where Pleasant Valley Wines are and Mercury Aircraft.
Who's up in the Gold Seal?
The old,
Went up the lake.
You're thinking Pleasant Valley.
right,
Pleasant Valley.
Yeah, okay.
they do the Great Western champagnes.
And
Right, that's right. And it's
And
not,
it's just,
The light was on there.
it's kind of,
Nothing now.
it's falling apart.
I was, that's where- All right, I gotta go.
So we would love to have you come. If you want a table for this event, we can give you a table. Whatever you want to do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the chance to come.
All right, well, that's all we've got for the evening. Although if you're on the board, we're gonna have a very brief